Okay, you might wonder what some of these questions here might have to do with our study of physics, but it should become obvious by the time we get down here. What's AB squared divided by C squared D? That means AB squared times the reciprocal of C squared D. That's what it means to divide. Multiply by the reciprocal. And then, of course, AB squared times 1 over C squared D. AB squared is a numerator. We multiply that by the numerator here. Because we multiply numerator by numerator, we get AB squared. And then we multiply denominator by denominator. Now, I haven't written down a denominator here, but we understand that AB squared is AB squared over 1. So we could multiply denominator by denominator and get C squared D. Okay, now let's do AB over C squared multiplied by C over B. What do we get? Well, it's a multiplication. We just multiply numerators, we multiply denominators. ABC divided by B times C cubed. I wrote the C cubed last, partly because that's the way it goes alphabetically, and partly because we can see we have a C over C cubed here. Okay, so what's that? Well, I can rewrite this as A here times B over B times C over C cubed. Now, C over C cubed I can write as C over C times 1 over C squared. Why would I rewrite it like this? Well, one reason I want to rewrite it like this is I don't want to see anybody canceling anything in this course for quite a while. You all demonstrated on this quiz just what I would expect from just about any group that comes out of an SOL-based high school in Virginia to pretty much be doing their basic algebra by superstition rather than rules. Cancellation is one big superstition. At least, cancellation is a great thing if you have the rules and know how to use it. But it's unnecessary. It's a nice shortcut, but people misuse it. So I would be in favor of banning it for anybody until their junior level of college. Okay, well, having made my statement about SOL and cancellation, how do we do this without canceling? And as I say, people amply demonstrated why we shouldn't be talking about canceling here, at least not to the class in general. Some individuals clearly understand what they're doing with cancellation. Most people do not. I rearrange it this way because now I can divide B by B, and that's 1. I can divide C by C. That's 1. And that leaves me with just my A and my 1 over C squared. Now, what's A times 1 times 1 times 1 over C squared? We can write 1s under all these things if we want to, so we always have denominators, but we multiply the numerators. A times 1 times 1 times 1 is A, and 1 times 1 times 1 times C squared is C squared. So we get A over C squared. Now, I had people crossing out these C's and ending up with a 3 in the denominator. I had people doing all kinds of things with cancellation here. And again, forget about cancellation. Go back to rules. The rules for multiplying and dividing fractions. Okay? It's that simple. Okay, so anyhow, we got meters over seconds divided by meters over seconds squared. Again, I got a lot of pretty good answers in this, but I think a good number of the class tried to start canceling while the thing was in this form, and that just is not going to work. Again, don't cancel. Use the rules. Division means multiplication by the reciprocal. Meters per second times seconds squared over meters. Okay? Now, that's going to be then, multiply the numerators, meters times seconds squared, multiply the denominators, seconds times meters. You want to cross this and this out. Well, that would be a correct application of cancellation, but I don't want you to use it. Had people crossing out the seconds and just no seconds left, even though this is seconds squared and this is seconds. So we have meters times seconds squared over seconds times meters. What do we do with that? Well, we can range that. We can have meters over meters multiplied by seconds over seconds. Take one of these seconds, divide it by this one, we still have another second out of our second squared. That's second over 1. So we can rearrange this to meters over meters, seconds over seconds, seconds over 1, which is then 1 times seconds over 1. And that's just seconds. Okay? That might seem complicated, but cancellation is a lot more complicated because there's a whole set of rules that you have to learn to do. This is not that difficult to learn, and it bypasses the dangers of cancellation. Okay. Now, kilogram meter over second squared multiplied by meters times seconds. What's that? Another thing I had people doing here is trying to do common denominators and stuff. You don't need to ever do that when you're multiplying just expressions of this nature. If you have to add or subtract fractions, that's when you need common denominators, not when you multiply them. Now, if the expression is complicated and your numerators have additions of fractions, then of course you're going to have to do it. That's not the case here. Okay, multiply numerators. We get kilograms times meters. That gives us kilograms meters squared times seconds. Divide by seconds squared. What happens? Well, we got seconds over seconds squared. That could be written as seconds over seconds times 1 over second. Second over second gives us times 1 over second. Seconds times 1 gives us seconds. Seconds times seconds gives us seconds squared. So what I have here is seconds over seconds squared. Seconds over seconds, of course, is 1. So we have kilogram meter squared here, 1 here, and reciprocal seconds here. We multiply that out. We have kilograms times meters squared over seconds. If you made any mistakes on doing any of these, abandon the things that cause you to make the mistakes and use the scheme I've outlined here. The only rules are you multiply the numerators, you multiply the denominators, and if you divide, you multiply by the reciprocal. Then you regroup so that you get a lot of ones, hopefully, and simplify your expression.